Oh yeah, definitely needed coffee this morning. So, congratulations! You're engaged! You're engaged! Wow. Take that in. The love of your life has popped the question and has committed to a life forever with you. Now you're probably like, I need to plan a wedding? I don't know what I'm doing. I have to plan a wedding? All of those questions are probably flooding through your brain, and that's okay. We're gonna dive into all of that. So, you're engaged. Before doing anything else, I just want you to take a moment and take that in. You found someone to spend the rest of their life with you. That's pretty incredible. Oftentimes we get caught up in the excitement, the shiny new ring, and why wouldn't you? But a wedding is more than that. A wedding is to celebrate you and your fiance starting a life together, and that should be the focus of your wedding planning. Speaking of that shiny new ring, is yours insured? Make sure you get insurance on your rings, ladies. It's as easy as adding an extension to your existing homeowners or renters insurance. It's that simple. There are other options too. You could take out a policy specific for jewelry. There are a bunch of insurance companies that will quote you specifically for a ring or a high valuable item. It is too beautiful and too nice for you to have to be stressed because you lost a diamond. Sometimes prongs get loose. You don't want to risk it. You don't want to worry about it. Your wedding planning is going to be stressful enough. You do not need to worry on top of everything else about a stolen or lost ring. Okay, now for the actual wedding planning. Before you even begin thinking about planning your wedding, please, 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 please set a budget. There are a few things that go into this. Do you guys have financial limitations? And is there a strict budget that you have to stick to that you know already? If that's the case, that's fine. You guys do not have to go into debt for a single day. Let me repeat, you do not have to go into debt for one day. I know it's tempting, but you can still have a beautiful wedding on a budget. There are also tons of resources for budget brides. If you're a budget bride, I was a budget bride, you could even reach out to me. I'm happy to help you guys. This is what I'm here for. I have plenty of tips and tricks I can share with you guys specifically for budget wedding planning. But for now, just understand that setting a budget is the first step to starting to plan your wedding. Now would also be the time to have the difficult conversations with your family. If you are getting help from family or you think that you might be getting help from family, you do need to know pretty early on how much money you have to devote toward the planning for your wedding. The last thing you want is to check out vendors that are way over your budget. And it's really easy to do that when you don't know what your budget is. If you can't afford them, you do not want to even look at them. There's nothing worse than finding a high-end vendor and then not having the money to pay for them, because then that just makes you sad and that makes you stressed and that makes you discouraged. And the last thing I want you to be in your wedding planning is to be discouraged. This needs to be exciting, so get excited. Oh, I just got really, really pumped. So set a budget first, understand what you're working with, and then you can start to look into vendors and start to hire your vendor team. The next piece of advice I want to share with all brides before you start to really plan your wedding and hire your vendors is to identify what aspects of your wedding mean the most to you. What are make it or break it? What aspects can you live without? For example, if photography is something that you love, you cannot wait to have your wedding album, you cannot wait to look at your wedding photos, and that is something that means the most to you. You do not want to hire your photographer last. You might have budget limitations at that point. You might have a lack of available vendors that you like. So unless you have unlimited budget, which if that's the case, you go girl, go get your dream wedding. But for most of us, we don't have unlimited budget. So we have to understand what aspects we can, splurge on a little bit more and what we can sacrifice. So creating some priorities will help you understand where some sacrifices might need to be made and where you can go ahead and put additional budget toward. So next, I want you to start an inspiration board. I highly recommend Pinterest. It could even be clipping magazines and putting them in a scrapbook. Whatever your style of inspiration creation, ooh, I like that. Start to experiment, get ideas. An inspiration board is going to help you identify what you like. You might change your mind a few times on colors and little details like that, and that's totally fine. At least narrowing down what season you want to be married in will help you when you're deciding on a date and a venue. Do you want a winter wonderland? You might have to have like a little fur shawl with a holiday theme. That's so pretty. Or do you want more of the summer vibe? Hot summer day, a beach wedding, sand in your feet, two totally different wedding themes. So understand what season you want to get married in can help you identify what your wedding should look like. Also, if you have the budget, a wedding designer might be really handy here. A lot of planners like myself also offer wedding design, and that will help you be able to identify what you want your day to look like. So if you're not the crafty type or you're not the creative type, wedding design just kind of scares you, definitely look into a wedding designer, and they will make sure that you get the wedding of your dreams on your budget. After you know your theme, you'll need to know approximately how many guests will be attending. It doesn't have to be your final guest count, but you still should know about how many people you want at your wedding. This might also be directly impacted by your budget, because if you have a smaller budget, you might need to have a smaller guest count. A wedding of 30 people versus a wedding of 300 people have a completely different look and feel, require a completely different venue, and also a completely different budget. So the guest count will directly impact the rest of your planning. And last but certainly not least, book a date with your venue. At this point in the wedding planning process, you already know your budget, you already know your guest count, you already know your theme or your season, so deciding on a venue and picking a date is the natural next step in the wedding planning process. Once you pick a venue and book that wedding date, all the other details will fall into place. This is really where the majority of your budget will probably be spent. So having that be your first step is going to help set the tone for the rest of your wedding planning. So as a quick recap, you recently got engaged, you don't know where to start. First things first, get that beautiful ring insured. Next, set a wedding budget. Identify your wedding priorities. What is most important to you? Start looking at wedding inspiration. Board it out. Search Pinterest. Go wild. Identify your approximate guest count. And then finally, book a date with your venue. If you have any other questions or comments, please put them down below. I would love to hear all of the other questions that you guys have. And if you want to stay in touch with all things weddings, please like this video and subscribe to my channel. I'll be putting out content once a week. I can't wait to share all of my wedding tips, tricks, and advice with you all. Until then, happy wedding planning.